Hi, my name's Crystal, and my family are super wealthy. I have never needed to work, but I wanted to. So, me and my friend Alice decided to become entrepreneurs, and my dad helped fund our startup. We both love shopping, so we created a really cool app that helps you choose the latest trends to suit your body. And unlike my friends, I was single, but I didn't mind. In fact, I loved how free I felt. However, there was just one small problem. My parents weren't okay with this. They were desperate for me to find someone and get married, and that's when they decided to take matters into their own hands. They started setting me up on blind dates. I told them I could easily find my own date, but they said that whoever I dated had to come from a good, wealthy family. I couldn't believe it. I wasn't even interested in dating, especially as I'd had some really bad relationships in college. That's also why my parents wanted to find someone for me, as they'd hated the guys I'd dated before and didn't trust me that I wouldn't make the same mistakes again. I refused to go, but then my dad said something that sent chills up my spine. Okay, don't go. But then your startup is over. I'll take away all your funding. Wait, no, that couldn't happen. We'd worked so hard to build the app, and the only way we could afford it was with my dad's help. Fine, I'll go, but I can't promise I'll like these guys, I said. I went on the date, and then many more after that, and I quickly became an expert at making sure those boys wouldn't be interested in me. And yet still, I was keeping my parents happy by going on the dates. It was a win-win. But before I became a pro at this blind date game, there were many awkward and hilarious situations that I had to go through. On one of my first dates, we met up in the lounge of a hotel. All I knew was that the guy Trent owned the hotel and that his family were a big name in some hotel chains in the area. I was running late, and the parking lot in the basement was jam-packed. I finally managed to find an empty spot, and I was rushing to get to it. But then out of nowhere, another car also appeared and was heading for the same spot. We ended up bumping into each other. Both our cars got badly scratched, and mine even had a dent. Oh no, my baby. I was so upset. This was my Porsche that my parents had bought me for my sweet 16th. And even though I have a ton of other cars at home, this was my most favorite. Who would dare to hurt my child like this? I stomped out of the car and started yelling at the guy. He climbed out of his car and he was wearing a hat, so I couldn't really see his face, but I guessed he was younger than me. Could he be the valet parking boy or something? But then he started speaking and said that it was my fault because I'd been going in the wrong direction, and that he had every right to make me pay for the damage done to his car. What? He's the one who should have been paying for the damage on my car. Well, that just made me even more furious. And then he had the cheek to say he was in a rush, and he handed me his business card and said we'd settle this later. I snatched that card out of his hand and threw it in my bag without even looking. That would be my lawyer's problem, not mine. And to make matters worse, he had taken the parking spot. So now I still had to find somewhere else to park. It took me ages. And by then, I figured my date wouldn't have even waited for me. I arrived at the table that had been reserved for us, and of course he was already sitting there. From afar, I was impressed. He looked like a total babe. Maybe my parents' taste wasn't so bad after all, and his outfit was on point. In fact, I'd seen it somewhere before. Must have been a new trend. I said hi to him and sat down, but he just started laughing, and after like 1 minute of smiling at me, he said hi back. Then he started to introduce himself, and I realized who he was. He was the guy I just bumped into in the parking lot. Oh my god, this couldn't be happening. This was too awkward. I pretended to look for something in my bag and then quickly glanced at his name card. Yep, it said general manager on it. Oh man, I was doomed. I tried my best to act like nothing had happened. I mean, maybe he didn't recognize me. Ugh, who am I kidding? Of course he did. And as the date went on, he kept teasing me about it, saying that the parking spot was reserved for hotel staff. I was kind of bummed. I mean, he was so cute. and I'd completely ruined my chances. I felt bad for creating such a bad impression and begged him not to tell my parents. He agreed that it would be our little secret, and after that, things were better. We actually got really close and even became good friends. You're probably wondering why we didn't hit it off. Well, turns out he's actually gay. He trusted me enough to come out to me. That's how close we were. He hadn't even told his parents yet. And that's why these blind dates are as much of a nuisance for him as they are for me. So, he's the one who helped me come up with the idea to act like a bad girl, to turn off the other guys on dates. All based on his actual experience of our date. Ever since then, whenever I went on a blind date, I was intentionally late so that I'd make the worst impression possible. I'd wear my bad girl outfit, which was an oversized black shirt, ripped jeans, and dirty sneakers. And of course, I'd always chew gum. Make sure to have this annoyed look on my face all the time. This drove rich guys crazy, and none of them ever asked for a second date with me. But one time, it didn't go to plan. The guy I was on a date with, Corey, he saw right through me and even had the guts to confront me about what I was trying to do. It made me so mad, and it was the worst date ever. But still, he told his parents that it went well, and he wanted to see me again. He surely wanted to pick a fight with me. Since he was the only guy that I'd been on a blind date with that had given positive feedback, my parents were super stoked upon hearing this, and they made me continue seeing him. Otherwise, they said they'd take away my cars and cancel my credit cards. I couldn't stand him. He was your typical bad boy player type who thought he owned the world. He didn't even work. His dad just made up a position for him in the family business. What a spoiled brat. And we didn't even actually date. He just rang me up anytime he wanted and made me go to places with him, as if I was just an accessory to him. It's such a waste of time, but what else could I do? One day, we were at the country club to celebrate his dad's 60th. It was so boring, so I snuck outside for a bit. He caught me playing on my phone, and he literally snatched it out of my hand and teased me with it. He thought it was hilarious until he realized that I'd been texting with Trent. Suddenly, he looked really distant. Then he asked if I was close to this guy. I didn't even have a chance to respond. He quickly returned my phone and just left me standing there. I didn't get it. Was he jealous or something? After that, he disappeared for a few weeks, which was really odd because normally he was all up in my face all the time. My parents were worried, and they forced me to go check to see if he was okay. Why is he so bothersome? I didn't want to go at all, but still, I had to. I got to his apartment, and the whole place smelled like alcohol. I mumbled in annoyance, "Hey, are you an alcoholic or something? I thought you'd maybe been sick, but okay then, I see." Then he said, "This is all because of you." I was confused. What had I done? I was about to leave when I noticed something. It was a crumpled photo of Trent and Corey. Oh my God. Am I seeing things or what? I picked it up. Corey glanced over and sighed. After a really awkward silence, Corey told me that Trent was his ex. What? So Corey was gay too? They broke up because they had planned to run away together because neither of them were brave enough to come out to their parents. But then Corey had bailed on the plan when his dad had offered him a position in the company and a huge inheritance. He couldn't give that up. Trent had been so hurt because Corey had chosen money over their relationship. It's been 2 years since then, and Corey regrets it a lot, but Trent won't even give him the time of day anymore. That's when Corey asked me to help him speak to Trent again. Oh God, I don't know if I should do it because I don't want Trent to date such a bad guy again. Plus, maybe Trent will just think I'm taking Corey's side and cut me out of his life too. But what if Corey really has changed? So, in the first part of my story, my parents set me up on some blind dates. First, there was Trent, who ended up being gay, so that didn't work out. And then I met Corey, who wasn't far from being called my worst enemy. We hated each other, but still, he made me go on dates with him. And then it turned out he was also gay, and that Trent was actually his ex. Corey begged me to help him get Trent back. So let's see how Trent will react to this. I decided to casually ask Trent about his past relationships and stuff, to see if he'd bring Corey up. He said he'd been so badly betrayed by his ex and that he still hadn't forgiven him for it. Clearly, he was talking about Corey. I didn't know what to do. It was killing me to see how miserable they both were. Seeing how Corey desperately wanted Trent back made me realize that he had changed. If he was given one more chance, he would never risk losing Trent a second time. So I decided to help them get back together. I told Corey about it first, and I have never seen him look so happy. And after that, we started getting on pretty well, because we didn't have to pretend to be dating anymore. We could just be ourselves. And guess what? He's not actually that bad. In fact, he was just like me, having to put up with his parents setting him up on stupid dates. He even told my parents that I was such an amazing girl. And after that, my parents started to respect me more. The only thing was, I couldn't let Trent know about my plan. In fact, Trent didn't even know that Corey and I knew each other. But from the way Trent spoke about Corey, I knew he still had feelings for him too. So all I had to do was set up a date for them and let fate handle the rest. I asked Trent to meet me for dinner and arranged with Corey to secretly show up later. But as soon as Trent saw Corey, his face went bright red, and within a second flat, he was furious. He stood up and started yelling at us both and even pushed Corey out of the way as he stormed out. Every single person in the restaurant was staring at us, and I even heard some old couple whispering that I was clearly two-timing these guys, and I'd just been caught, and how embarrassing that was. Trent was really mad at me after that, so I had to try and get him to forgive me, and at the same time, try and persuade him to give it another go with Corey. I knew that Trent had a sweet tooth, so I started making cupcakes and cookies and leaving them on his doorstep. He never answered the door no matter how many times I knocked. And one time I left a 3-tiered chocolate cake at his door, and I overheard his neighbors talking. One of them said, "Oh, when will she stop? What a desperate gold digger." And then the other looked at me and started shaking her head. She said, "She clearly has no dignity. What kind of girl chases a boy like that?" I was so embarrassed. I realized how needy I must have looked, so I ran back to my car, but before I got in, Trent came running after me. He had heard the neighbors too, and he'd realized how hard I'd been trying. He said to me, "Crystal, stop it already. You keep trying to fix things that were never your fault to begin with." Well, at least he'd spoken to me again. I told him I was sorry, and I just missed hanging out with him. So he said he forgave me, but there was one more thing he wanted. I replied to him with the biggest smile on my face. "Sure, anything for you, Trent. I'm all yours for today." "Okay then, let's go to the theme park. It's been a while, and I need something to relieve all this stress," he said. I'm pretty sure I started to sweat a little upon hearing that because I'm literally petrified of heights. So we went there and went on all the rides that Trent wanted to, and I had to close my eyes the whole time and spent most of the day clinging onto him out of fear. But Trent seemed to have a great time, and I was just glad to make him happy again. That was all that mattered. After that day, I was able to bring up Corey again, and I told him that he didn't have to take him back, but maybe he could just open his heart a little and give Corey a chance to explain himself. He reluctantly agreed, just so that I'd stop going on and on about it. And he did give him a chance. Well, not really a chance, but he did keep the gifts Corey sent instead of sending them right back. And he stopped blocking his number. They even started talking again. Anytime Trent replied to Corey, Corey would call me and tell me, and he'd be so excited. And they even met up to have a serious chat about what had happened. Now there's no more bad blood between them, and all that was left to do was for Corey to make a move to win Trent back. Corey started to shower Trent in love. He even bought him an annual pass to the theme park and backstage passes to his favorite singer. But still, Trent wouldn't budge. He was being nice to Corey, but he didn't seem to want to date him again, which was so weird. What was going on? Had Trent met another guy already? One day, I met up with Trent to talk over a drink. I jokingly asked him, "Hey, are you seeing another guy? What about Corey? I mean, I know he hurt you in the past, but he's changed now. And honestly, you two were miserable before. Now that he's back in your life, you seem so much happier." I waited for him to reply, but he just stared at me, which was really weird and it made me blush. Had I just stepped out of line? I said to him, "Well then, come on, spill the beans. Who is he?" Then he smirked and downed his drink, and he said, "The reason I'm so much happier is because, yes, I have met someone." "I knew it!" I interrupted. Then I realized he wasn't finished speaking. He continued, "But it's not a guy. It's a girl. And she's the reason why I can't be with Corey again. She made me realize that I'm actually bisexual." And I was surprised. I mean, I really loved Corey. So this girl kind of came out of nowhere and has blown me away with how incredible she is. I couldn't believe it. "Oh my God, who is she?" I said, laughing. And then he went bright red and said, "Crystal, come on. It's you. Duh." What? I was too shocked to even reply. My heart was beating so fast. Trent liked me? Honestly, I was so confused. I mean, Trent was gay. Why would he like me? I felt so awkward and I could feel his eyes on me. I knew he was waiting for me to say something. I looked up for a second and our eyes met, and the tension in the air was so intense. I just couldn't stand it. I made up an excuse, saying I felt tired and that I needed to go home. Trent looked a bit upset, but still offered to drive me home. I turned him down, though, and said I'd take an Uber. I just needed some alone time. I couldn't stop thinking about what he'd said. It actually made sense. We had so much fun together, but because I'd known he was gay, I'd never really looked at him as boyfriend material. But what if he wasn't gay? I mean, could we be together? The more I thought about it, the more I realized I liked him too. But I had to forget about those feelings because what about Corey? I couldn't just steal the love of his life like that. He'd be heartbroken. I didn't sleep a wink that night. All kinds of questions constantly popped up in my head. The next day, Trent texted me first, asking, "Did you sleep well last night? I hope what I said last night didn't keep you up all night," with a smiley face. I replied, "Actually, I was awake the whole night. I've thought a lot about my feelings, but Trent, I don't want to hurt Corey. We can't do this." He then replied, "Don't think too much. That doesn't matter. Just answer this one question. Do you have feelings for me? Just say yes or no." I don't know what was going through my mind, but at that moment, I guess I was just tired of things being so complicated. So I typed yes, then hit send. Okay, so now Trent knew I had feelings for him too, and he sounded so happy. He said I shouldn't worry and that we could work this out as long as our feelings were mutual. A few days later, Trent said he'd meet up with Corey to talk to him. I was way too anxious to ask Trent how it went, but then at midnight, Corey called me. I was terrified to answer. I knew he would yell at me, but to my complete surprise, he didn't. He sounded calm and said Trent had told him everything and that if I truly had feelings for him, I should go for it. He said, "I've spent years away from the one I love, and I don't want the same thing to happen to you and Trent. It's too painful. You both deserve to be happy. Plus, you helped me so much. Thanks to you, I managed to clear things up with Trent, and just having him back in my life, even as a friend, is good enough for me. I'll find someone else, and it'll make me so happy to know you two are happy." I was so touched by what he said, I couldn't even respond. I just started crying and told him he'd definitely meet someone amazing soon. Even he sounded choked up, but he tried to hide it by laughing and calling me a crybaby. Now that I had his support, I decided to give it a go with Trent. We went on a date, and it was so fun. Seeing as it wasn't our first time hanging out, we were so comfortable around each other. And now that I knew he was interested in me, I noticed how much he gave me butterflies. It was amazing. Now we're officially a couple. Turns out my parents are pretty good at playing Cupid, right?